Welcome back. Today we're taking a look at this Amplicon PowerTel 720 telephone system. There's nothing really spectacular about this system, but the reason we are taking a look at it today is we're going to tear it apart and completely scrub it. Why? Well, my old phone died, which is one of those old Uniden 900 megahertz cordless phones, and yes, I still use a landline phone. Really isn't a landline phone, it's a cable-based phone system. There really isn't any landline phones in this area that I know of. I mean, I'm sure you could still get something through the phone company, but who does that anymore, really? And nowadays, who has one through their cable company or anyone like that? I do. But you're also talking to somebody who has an ancient cell phone like this, and yes, it's ancient, so I don't really like to spend a lot of time on it when I do talk to people. I'd rather use my house phone. And that has nothing to do with minutes, it's just I have it. I haven't canceled the service yet, I just still have it. I was actually planning on getting faster internet and canceling the home phone and saving some money there for the faster internet, but I'm already getting the fastest internet that I have, and now that they've actually changed my modem just because the guy was here to do something else, I have great speeds now anyway. In fact, I can upload most of my videos in less than an hour. In some cases. Usually it's about an hour and a half depending on the length of the video. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. The thing is my phone died. I needed a new one. I figured before I spent any money on it, I'll go ask my old man if he has any lying around, because he seems like in his empire of dirt, as they say, he's got some stuff that people just end up giving him. And my parents end up having a lot of garage sales, and I think this was supposed to be one of the things they were going to sell for somebody, or he just took it for himself, or better yet, someone just asked him if he wanted it, and you know, he just holds on to things, and I'm kind of the same way. Guilty as charged. But this particular system he had lying around, I know it's not one of theirs, but he said, here, take it, it still works. I'm like, okay, cool, I don't have to go buy one. And I was hoping it had multiple units, which this does, answering machine built in, because yes, I still use the answering machine too. I don't have voicemail on the phone, it just never set it up, and it's just not there right now. And really, there's only one person that calls me, or I call, it's my mom, I'll admit. Hi Mom, she watches too. So yeah, my dad usually called, talked to him for a few minutes. Mom, I get up chewing her ear off all night. It's just one of those mother-son things, I guess you could say. But that is what it is. But anyway, this is the phone they hand me. This is the phone I'm going to use. They both still work, but you may be able to see it's just funky. It's not terribly bad. I've seen far worse, but it's just funky. You know, I want to give it a good scrubbing. Also, there was some sticky stuff in the back here. And well, how do I scrub down phones? How do I scrub down anything really like this? The best way, honestly, is good old-fashioned soap and water. But how do you do that when there's all these electronic pieces involved? Well, you tear them apart. You get everything down to the bare plastic, the bare, you know, rubber. Some of these are rubber buttons, whatever. And that allows you to get really good and get in here and clean. These things are a lot dirtier than you think they are. This one isn't bad, like I said, but I have seen far, far worse. But yeah, you can see there's just some stuff. Now you can just clean this with some surface, there you go, with just some surface spray, or I use isopropyl alcohol in a spray bottle. I mean, this stuff works great. Good idea to put that in a spray bottle. I picked that tip up from the place I work with. It's a lab, so they use the isopropyl to clean down the work surfaces. And putting it in a spray bottle works great. That's an awesome idea. But at any rate, that's one way you could do it. You could use like Simple Green or Windex, or use anything like that. But I feel like a lot of times you can't really get into the finer areas. So one of the tools in my arsenal, if you don't really know by now, is an old toothbrush. That's one of the best tools you can use, especially if it's a soft bristled one. But we will take this apart, and you know, I can go through the manual and show you how to set it up and all that stuff. I mean, you could tell somebody was really looking at what they were doing, because they actually end up putting circles and everything around all the buttons, and outlining, this one's the boost, I need to know what that is. In case you haven't figured out by the large text on these things, this is a phone for the impaired, either visually or through hearing. You can actually see it's got braille in the back here, caution loud. And yeah, I haven't tested them out yet, but from what I understand, it's got a boost mode on here that boosts the volume up far beyond the normal range in this thing. They actually say the normal volume on this is louder than normal volume on a standard cordless phone. I don't need any of that, so I'll probably be, you know, distancing this from the ear a little bit when I talk on it. I don't really plan on listening to it loud like that. And also, while we have it together, we'll look at the front of it. And it's interesting how they have the memory like right up at the top of the phone. I guess you could just pick it up and grab it and just dial it. You know, where else would you put it really down here? I mean, you could put it in the menu, but the idea is for people who are visually impaired, so it's easier just to hit the red button right there. I just figured while it's against your ear, it would be annoying, but we'll see. You know, when you only really have one person, you end up calling on them. I mean, even if I call my wife to let her know I'm on my way home from work, which we tend to do, I call her cell phone because what if she's not home yet? You know, she might not get out of work early, she might get out of work late, and I don't know that. So it doesn't really matter. I don't plan on using these things a terrible lot, but when I do talk to my mom on the phone, I do spend quite a bit of time talking to her, just catching up. But, you know, that's enough of really the intro to this. The real meat and potatoes of this video is just tearing everything apart. So the handsets are going to be the same. The base stations are pretty much going to be the same. We'll start with these guys. Since they are exactly the same, there probably really isn't any sense in laying the parts out separately, but I guess we really should. We'll take a look at the battery up close. This is a AAA pack. There are 3 AAA nickel metal hydride batteries in here, which is, you know, showing its age. And these are only 750 milliamp hours at 3.6 volts. I don't know what the talk time on these is. I'd imagine it's in the book here someplace. I guess I could thumb through really quickly and show you. Okay, here we go, technical specs. The technical specs, up to 100 hours on standby and maximum talk time of 10 hours. So we'll see about that. I'm sure the batteries are kind of used. You may still be able to find these someplace, but it may end up being cheaper just to buy a new phone at this point. One of the other things you'll notice, there's no antenna. The ones I have had the antenna. In fact, a little plastic piece that was on it broke off. I should actually get that in the frame towards the end of the video here, and we'll show you what the older phone looks like. I see on these handsets, by the way, the back just popped off. There's the battery connector. This is where it can be programmed, obviously, by the company. And there's a couple screw holes here, so I'm assuming I'm going to take those screw holes out and this thing's going to hinge out. Let me go do that. Alright, screws are out, and if we look and see, this should, like I said, just hinge out. It's probably going to have some connections here on the side, just some simple snaps. We can use the iFixit kit here and pull out a spudger if we need to. In fact, I might just do that. These things are great for getting into these little areas like this and prying these things open. Now you will see in here, hopefully, some of these white specks and stuff. That's funk. That's actual dirt from just holding these things in the hand. That's why I want to clean it. I tend to do this with some things that I pick up. If someone gives me, hey, here's my old computer, do you want it? Here's my old phone, do you want it? And I tend to say yes to a lot of these things. Sometimes I say no. Sometimes I say yes, and when I get them in my hand, I do want to clean them up. So I'm just going to go around here and pop all these little clips out. This is probably going to be the boring part. So I'm going to break film here, and we'll come back when it's open. All it took was just a little bit of brute force just to pop the last snap off its mount there. And we can see it's a pretty interesting design inside. In fact, I'll flip it this way because the wires in here makes it easier. They have the speaker up at the top here, and it's got this little metal clip that is holding it in place here, and it just completely comes out. But it seems like it's glued in place because it doesn't pop out easy. So I'm just going to gently prise this out of its spot here. And there's a little rubber kind of sticky piece. We'll take that out with it too and just kind of stick that to the side. Not too much going on in here. I mean, it's your general phone. I say not too much. I mean, if you really think about everything that's in this and think about one of the earlier cordless phones, how it just picked up dial tone, hung up, that was it. This thing's gonna have memory and, you know, adjustable features to it, I'm sure. Makes it kind of interesting. Now there are some screws at the top here. We do have to take all this out because, like I said, we are going to give this a pretty thorough cleaning. Unfortunately, when you have some stuff that's glued in like that, they have to be careful around those areas, but no big deal. We'll take care of that when we get there. And this just comes out the side over here. We're just hanging up in the little jack here. Now this does have the standard size headphone jack that a regular cell phone would have. An older cell phone, I'll mention, not like the newer ones that are Android or, you know, with the regular headphone jack in it. Board flips over, we can just see, oh, there was this rubber piece that went around the LCD screen. And it's just typical tactile dome buttons, nothing real fancy here. There's spots for some LEDs, but there are none there. So I guess the keypad doesn't light up. I mean, with buttons that big, does it really need to light up? It may still light up. There may be some LEDs on there in some other positions, but I'm not seeing any on here now. Also, you can see the keypad, it's pretty clean, not too bad. I've seen these where the little white area in the back here was just filthy, funky, filthy. Another telltale sign of where you can see dirt is around white buttons like this. You'll see it around the bottom edge. This is pretty clean though. Maybe this is the spare handset. The other one will be dirtier, I'm quite sure. Only other thing to note is there's a little light at the top here when you get a new call. I think it blinks when there's a voicemail, or, you know, if the phone's ringing, it probably flashes. But that's really all in all. Really it. The little metal shield here, this is where your RF stuff's going to be. In fact, you can see the little antenna is just right next to that, so that's pretty clear. Yeah, we can see those little spots here. One's labeled as UART, the other one's labeled as JTAG. So that's definitely where you're going to do the phone's programming, right through there. Yeah, nothing fancy. What I'm going to do is now is pop that earpiece out. It looks like that just may pop right out, no problems. And then we'll take the rest of the buttons off there and we'll show you the front of this case and everything. And while we had a quick pause there, I went ahead and took apart the other handset so we can see what that looked like. And again, not bad. This one is definitely a little dirtier. I can't really show you any of the examples like I was telling you about, but you can kind of see inside the buttons here, it's a little crusty. Not horrible. I mean, it's not clean, but it's not horribly bad either. You also see sometimes you'll see inside here. So the areas we're going to scrub are all in here. Obviously we'll clean the LCD screen, the protector for the LCD screen, the backs of the cases, the doors, all the buttons. I have all the you know, critical pieces, I guess you could say, just kind of off to the side here on my bench. While we have that out, I have some cleaner for the actual LCD screen. We'll just make sure there's no fingerprints or anything on that before we put it back together. And since I don't want to make too many trips back and forth to the sink, we're also going to take apart all this stuff here too. So I'm going to go do that. It looks like these are just going to pop off the bottom, and that's that. I'll point out this has the Intertech logo on it. It's not UL listed. I know there's some of the people I watch and that are subscribed to this channel know the difference between the two. But the base station and the charging station seem to be very identical here as far as the layout is. Just a couple screws and maybe some snaps in the top half. Of course, I gotta get the old wires out of the way here. Now this is definitely better than having a separate answering machine. Plus you can access the, should be able to get the voicemails right from the handset. But let's go ahead and tear those apart. I'll make some room on my bench here. Charging station here has 2 screw holes. The other ones are blanks, so don't bother taking those off. Also note, it's just hardwired. Again, not a big fan of that. I had to switch screwdrivers here. One that has a long, thin shaft to get into that hole a little better. The other one was just a little too fat and wouldn't fit. Once we're in here, we can see this just popped off. It just snaps in the front and the screw holes in the back, very, very similar to how the phone went. Nothing spectacular in here. There's just a little board with an LED on it and the terminals, and that's effectively it. Now there are some spots on here for some other components, but it doesn't seem like they're mounted. I do have to take this out, so we'll take another look at it on the other side. Also for strain relief, it's just a little screw here with a fat head on it, just covering that wire. Now, of course, since there's no power actual plug on this wire, it's just hardwired. Effectively, if I want to wash this piece down, I'm going to have to actually, you know, desolder the wire from the board, and not sure if I'm going to go through all that. It really isn't necessary. This thing isn't, you know, that filthy. The top part, though, it's a little scummy, so we can clean that. The bottom part can probably just get a surface treatment. But again, while we're in here, we will check it out and see what's up in here, because you can see the DC, that's the bottom feed here, and then obviously these are your connectors where the phone will plug into. And one side of the board doesn't really have much going on. Hopefully the camera will zoom in on this, so if you want to try to play around with that design of this, because when you flip it over, you can see clearly there is some stuff going on here. But I don't know what. I don't know what all this is doing. I was thinking that this thing would somehow kill the charge, but I don't think it does. I don't think it's a smart charger. I mean, I just see a, looks like a Xenier diode there, and a transistor, a couple resistors. That's it. And of course the LED. So I don't know what function this is providing. Like I said, there are some other pieces in the back here that are missing, and there are other connectors, like, you know, this is CH plus one, and this is a CH plus. So not sure if there's any hackability there. I will say there is a good amount of room in this case. So if you did want to do something with this, I don't know what, maybe, you know, oh, I don't know, maybe drill some LEDs in this and make it into a little night light or something like that while it sits on a desk, or if you want to make it more visible, easier to find, you could do something like that. It's only a 7-volt little transformer here, 0.42 amps. So if you wanted, you could probably get a little bit of a beefier supply, perhaps a 12-volt supply, hook it into here, and then obviously you'll have to do something before it actually gets to the board to step it back down to 7 volts. Something like a step down transformer. One of these guys here might do that trick. Again, we're here, I might as well point out some things, kind of make this a little bit more interesting than just a scrub down video. But we're going to leave that to the side, and the base station will be next. Now, I'm assuming by the screw situation on the last one, this one might not have all the screws as well. You can kind of tell a little bit if you poke something in there. If there's screws, it tends to go down a little bit further, but the best way is just to pop it off. Let's see what we find. 4 screws come out the bottom, which of course was the complete opposite of what the other one was. And now it's all snapped in, so now we'll definitely need a prying tool of sorts here. Either this guy or my other one, which has decided to run away at me. Somewhere, here he is. We'll use this one here, and we'll just go in and pry it. That's the only thing you're going to be able to do, is just find the edge. One of these is going to stick there, like that. It's going to snap right in, and you can just zip right along with this thing. This is why you need good tools, or at least the right tool for the job. Because if you don't have that, you'll be struggling. And that's it. As they say, we're in Lake Flynn. Pretty similar arrangement here as far as a little charging circuit goes on top. Slightly different. This one actually has 2 LEDs underneath that little light indicator. And that's where the charge is, and there's also one at the top here for voicemail. It's interesting how some places they use a surface mount LED, and other places they used through-hole LEDs. Really isn't any consistency. I don't know how expensive this phone was or how cheap this phone was. I'm sure it wasn't cheap because it was marketed to a certain demographic, which is never right in my book, but that's what they do. Here's your little antenna. I don't even know what range these things run on. Like I said, my original one I was using was a 900 megahertz, and then I know from there they went to 2.4 gigahertz, which is exactly what the microwaves run on and exactly what Wi-Fi runs on. And I also know after that, I think they went to 5 gigahertz, and then there was some other banding after that. I used to work for Radio Shack, so that was right around the time when I was leaving there. So the newer ones out, I don't have too much familiarity to, but I know they stopped calling them in the gigahertz range. I'm sure they are. They had a different. It was digital technology, whatever. I mean, here's what I was using. The antenna broke on it, and now it's completely dead. It's been sitting off the charger for so long. Yeah, it's old. I think everyone's had one of these in the day. They were just reliable. I mean, it's still the original battery in the thing, for crying out loud. But the rest of this is just going to be all this coming apart. There's a bunch of screws on here, obviously, to hold that all in place. There's one spot here. It looks like it might be Celastic, but it's probably more like hot snot that they just held that in place with. No big deal. That'll just pop out. And we'll get that out in just a second here. Oh, just came across a nice nasty little surprise. When you take the keypad off, you'll notice there's no buttons. That's because the buttons are actually a whole nother piece on the front. So that's always fun. But again, it makes it a little easier to clean. You can see some things like the delete key here is old, just worn. But the rest of them should clean up pretty nicely. I was just playing around with the board here too, see if I could see anything cool in here to point out. There is a fuse in here. You can see right here it's a, soldered to the board, but whatever, it's still replaceable, right? But I wonder now, is that fuse hooked up to the line here, or is it hooked up to the actual power input? Because, I think you can actually get some pretty nasty spikes on the telephone side of things here. And the fuse might be there to actually just protect you from getting, shocked. I did have a friend one time, he had me put phone lines in his actual jack in his mom's room, or replace the jack. I don't remember what the story was. I think I actually had to run a jack in there. So I did, the whole thing, ran the wire from one jack. I think I went under the floor or over the ceiling, like however I did it. And I got to the room, and I'm messing with the terminals, and I'm screwing everything on, and dummy me, I'm holding on to the metal of the screwdriver, and I'm getting a little tingle. I'm wondering, what the heck am I getting tingled by? The phone was ringing. If I don't know how they work nowadays with the voice over IP and all that stuff, but the older landline phones, to make the phone ring, it sent a higher voltage up the line. That made it ring, and I got walloped with that. I wasn't expecting it. It's just one of those things I just didn't think about. It's a fun little story about that. So yeah, I don't know how it works nowadays though. Because first of all, there's a speaker inside, all right? So it's not like it's a big bell that has to actually physically ring for you to be able to hear it. It could just like buzz practically to let you know the phone's ringing. So you don't need a lot of juice to do that. So I'm wondering if there isn't, that high of a line voltage anymore in the phone lines, or well, that's being done within the modem. There's a transformer in there. I don't really know. If anybody knows, I'd be curious to find out. But again, with this board, there's nothing really spectacular to show here. I mean, if you want, you can clean all the contacts here with contact cleaner. The top part up here seems like that's where the answering machine portion went. I don't have the tray here in front of me, but it looks like you can just desolder these pieces and take those buttons right off. Yeah, outgoing message, on, off, stop. So if you had a unit that didn't have voicemail, it probably doesn't have that up there. That's what it seems like to me. There's also the RF chip behind it, so maybe that has something to do with it. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not a electronics engineer by no means, but it is fascinating looking at this stuff. And if you don't really get to poke around inside circuit boards very much, this is gold. That's all gold plating in there. So when you hear people say they scrap motherboards and they scrap circuit boards for gold and everything else, that's what they're talking about. Now granted, you need a lot of it to make a difference, but hey, if you have boxes of these things lying around, there's a good chance you do have that, you know, gold. And it's on both sides of this thing. So I figured I'd point that out. So not much I could do physically this way. It's all going to be going over to the sink now to clean this. And again, my method's just going to be, you know, I'm not going to go crazy. I'm not going to sit here and power sand the thing, for crying out loud, or sandblast it, or you know, power wash it, I should say. But I will, you know, use a sponge where I can. I'll use my little toothbrush where I can, and we'll get all this nice and clean. And I'll mention real quick, I got this bucket that all this actually came in. So I'm just going to use that to transfer everything over to the sink. In fact, I'll probably just wash it right in that, make it nice and easy for me. I gave everything the good scrubbing that it deserved. Also gave it some time to dry completely, because of course you don't want to reassemble this with any kind of moisture in there. And you can see there's just a whole plethora of parts in here. Now there are some parts that didn't come out as clean as they should have, and that's the lens here. Now that's an obvious thing, because it's, you know, plexiglass or acrylic or some sort of material here, and it can scratch easy. So that's probably more scratching than dirt, of course, but I will give it a quick touch up here with some rubbing alcohol on a cloth, just to make sure everything is clean there as possible. Everything else though came out pretty good. I'll show you a lot of the pieces here. It just looks new. Now I know maybe to the camera and to the eye it doesn't seem much cleaner, but I can definitely tell you to my eye it is. Of course you're going to have some compression and YouTube and internet and all kinds of stuff between this and you, so it may translate a little differently in the picture, but it looks really good to me. So without further delay, I will go ahead and put this all together now, and just make sure like I said, make sure the LCD screens are clean. I'll keep my eye out on any little rubber grommets here or any pieces like that, and I'll just make sure all the contacts are clean as well. Now it does look a little overwhelming once you have everything lined up, but I assure you it is pretty easy. If anything, since this has been recorded, I could always go back to the earlier part of the video when this was all together and look at pictures or whatever I need to do. And I suggest, before taking things apart, to do so yourself. Either take a video of it or take pictures of it. They become very helpful later on. And once again, everything's put back together in perfect condition, as one could expect. Everything just snapped right together easily. Still have to put the rubber feet in the bottom though. But it looks like new, other than the fact that the delete button is a little worn. Not bad. There's some new fingerprints on it, of course, from me just touching it, but yeah, it looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and throw some batteries in here. In fact, I'll do that right now. Of course, these only fit in one way. And it does light up. Now, I can look through and see here. I don't have the base station hooked up, so I'll have to set the date and the time and all that. And if there's any, you see, like the caller ID is still in here, so I'm gonna have to go ahead and refresh these. Hopefully there's some kind of a reset. I'm gonna look in the book and see what happens. Also, quick note here, if the page is intentionally left blank and you put that text on it, it's not blank. Never figured out why they did that. Of course, that's on the back of the manual. I plugged the base station in to an outlet right here on my desk, and I also plugged in the phone line right back over here off camera. Just behind the Pileggi technical sign over here is actually my modem mounted on the wall, and I just went ahead and clipped it right to it. I'm trying to get the camera position. Maybe you can see the little blinking orange LED back there, maybe not. You can see the little gray wire going back there. And we're gonna give this an old Shotterooski. Now I'm sure I'm gonna have to maybe pair this, maybe not. Of course, it helps to have the battery in the phone. And we can go ahead and just power one up here and see if we get dial tone. It says it's searching, so it's looking for the base station. And it looks like we found it. And we have, yeah, dial tone. It's a beautiful thing. And that's what we wanted to see. And one of the main reasons, by the way, I said my older phone was dying. this thing had a horrendous static noise. I mean, when you hit talk, it was like what the hell? And it just happened like out of the blue. And then I had cable here, and they did some stuff outside, replaced some lines and whatnot, and that's why they replaced the modem. And I figured, well, you know, they did something before, they did something again. It's all new from the jack all the way out to the actual connection in the street here. This shouldn't happen. And I went ahead and, yeah, it still had static on it. I showed the tech, and he's like, that's gonna be something wrong with another line or something else external from that point on. So I actually plugged the phone directly into the modem, and it had the same issue. So that's why I figured the phone was going. And this one, you hear or not, there is no static. It is perfect. So that's good. And so now the rest of my time is going to be figuring out the rest of this system, trying to get the caller ID cleared out, maybe put some contacts in the phone, play with some things. Like I noticed if you hit the talk button and you do it twice, it goes straight to speakerphone. But on one of the handsets, it seems like it goes straight to speaker, so that might be a default that I have to play with. So that'll be just me in the book and some time. But with that, I want to thank you for watching. I should have some more videos coming up soon, as always, and we'll see you then.